The laughter around our family dinner table felt like shards of glass. We were supposed to be celebrating my older sister Brooke's promotion to vice president. Instead, she had turned the spotlight onto me. "Anthropology," she said, swirling her wine. "You spent 4 years and a small fortune studying emotions? I guess it's fitting, Bren. You always were too sensitive for real work." My face burned. I tried to defend my degree, explaining the value of understanding human systems and cultures. But my words were swallowed by more laughter. My own parents chuckled along, beaming at their successful daughter. Brooke leaned back, triumphant. "Let's be honest, no serious company would ever pay you for anything." As if on cue, my phone buzzed in my lap with a new email notification. I mumbled an excuse and fled to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. Tears of humiliation stung my eyes. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, and finally looked at my phone. The email was from a talent acquisition specialist at a company called Apex Dynamics. They were writing to inquire about my availability for a consultation. They had read my old university paper on organizational culture and wanted to discuss how my expertise could benefit them. My heart hammered against my ribs. This couldn't be real. It had to be a mistake or a cruel joke. A consultation? For my useless degree? The email ended with a request for a preliminary call. The company name tugged at a memory I couldn't quite place. Back in my childhood bedroom, I opened my laptop. My fingers trembled as I typed Apex Dynamics into the search bar. The company website loaded, sleek and corporate. My blood ran cold. I knew why the name was so familiar. It was Brooke's company. The very one she had just been promoted in. The one she constantly held up as the pinnacle of real-world success. I felt a wave of nausea. Was this some elaborate trick orchestrated by Brooke? I scanned the email again, my eyes catching a line I'd missed in my distress. Asterisk, we are experiencing significant internal conflict issues within a key department and believe your unique background could provide the clarity we need. Asterisk. I stared at the ceiling all night, trapped in a whirlwind of doubt and old memories. Brooke always got the accolades, I got the pats on the head. Taking this consultation felt like walking directly into the lion's den. What if I failed? What if Brooke found out and humiliated me all over again? But then I thought of her smug face at dinner, the sound of my parents' laughter. This wasn't about her. This was about me. It was a chance, however slim, to prove that my knowledge had value. Just before dawn, I made my decision. I typed a polite, professional reply accepting the invitation for a call. They responded within an hour, asking if I could submit a formal proposal by Monday. The next 48 hours were a blur of focused energy. I pulled an all-nighter, my small apartment transforming into a war room. I surrounded myself with textbooks, my old thesis, and modern case studies. I was rusty, and my confidence wavered with every sentence. My hands shook as I compiled data on how toxic workplace cultures cripple productivity and innovation. But with each page, my conviction grew. This was what I understood. This was my world. I finished the proposal as the sun rose on Monday, a comprehensive plan for diagnosing and healing team dysfunction. I felt a flicker of pride. Then my inbox chimed. The CEO's executive assistant had written. The CEO himself wanted to meet me in person. 2 days later, I stood before the gleaming glass tower that housed Apex Dynamics. I felt small and out of place in my simple blazer amidst a sea of expensive suits. Taking a deep breath, I walked inside. The lobby was a monument to corporate success, all marble and chrome. I was directed to a private elevator that whisked me to the top floor. A stern, elegant woman greeted me and led me to a boardroom with a breathtaking city view. A man in his 50s with a calm intensity stood to greet me. "Miss Carter?" "I'm William Moore, the CEO." He shook my hand firmly. "We're eager to hear your thoughts. Your proposal was unexpectedly insightful." He mentioned knowing Brooke, his tone neutral, but his eyes held a hint of something unreadable. I laid out my proposal, my voice gaining strength as I spoke about cultural diagnostics, communication frameworks, and restorative leadership practices. William Moore and the HR director listened intently, asking sharp, perceptive questions. They seemed most interested in patterns of toxic leadership. I spoke about the damage caused by dismissive managers who prioritize results over people, drawing on general principles but remembering Brooks' exact brand of condescension. The CEO nodded slowly, a grim look on his face. The meeting concluded far more positively than I'd ever imagined. William Moore stood and looked me directly in the eye. "This is precisely what we need. Can you begin the training sessions as early as next month?" Flushed with a mixture of terror and triumph, I stepped out of the boardroom. My mind was racing, trying to process the sudden turn of events. As I headed for the elevator, a familiar, icy voice cut through the air. "Brenda? What are you doing here?" Brooke stood there, holding a takeout coffee, her expression a mixture of confusion and contempt. "Did you get lost? The reception desk is on the ground floor." She assumed I was there to apply for a clerical job. Before I could form a response, the HR director stepped out behind me. "Excellent meeting, Dr. Carter," she said warmly. "We'll have the contract sent over by this afternoon. Looking forward to working with you." The color drained from Brooke's face. She looked from the HR director to me and back again, her mouth slightly agape. As soon as the HR director was out of earshot, Brooke grabbed my arm and steered me toward the stairwell. "What is this?" she hissed, her voice low and venomous. "What kind of game are you playing?" I pulled my arm free. "No game, Brooke. They invited me. They need my help." Her eyes widened in disbelief and fury. "Your help? With what? Your degree in finger painting?" She stepped closer, jabbing a finger near my face. "I will not let you embarrass me or this company. I'm shutting this nonsense down." True to her word, Brooke launched her counterattack. Later that evening, I received a forwarded email from William Moore. Attached was a lengthy message from Brooke sent to him and HR. It was a list of serious concerns about my complete lack of practical business experience and theoretical and proven academic background. She questioned my motives and my professionalism. My heart sank. This was exactly what I'd feared. But then I read William's brief note above Brooke's email. "Brenda, I'd appreciate your perspective on this. For context, your sister has a reputation for this type of communication." He wasn't automatically taking her side. He was asking for mine. I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the test. I could respond with emotion, with anger, and prove Brooke right. Or I could be the professional I claimed to be. I spent an hour crafting my reply. I didn't mention Brooke at all. I calmly addressed each of her concerns point by point, providing evidence from my research and reiterating the methodologies outlined in my proposal. I focused on facts, not feelings. I ended by reaffirming my commitment to helping Apex Dynamics. The response from William was swift and simple. "Thank you for your clarity and professionalism. We value that greatly. Are you available for a confidential meeting tomorrow to discuss the specific department in question?" The next day, I was back in William Moore's office. This time, it was just the two of us. He steepled his fingers and spoke plainly. "The department we need you to focus on is Brooks. We have a 60% turnover rate. We've received multiple formal complaints about bullying, dismissiveness, and a culture of fear." He slid a folder across the desk. It contained anonymized excerpts from exit interviews. The descriptions of the department head were a perfect mirror of my sister. "The irony is not lost on me," William said softly. "We need your help specifically because of your sister's leadership. So I have to ask you directly. Are you comfortable training her team?" I took a deep, steadying breath. "Yes," I said. "I am." The following Monday, a company-wide email went out from HR. It announced a new, mandatory leadership development series designed to foster a more collaborative and innovative work environment. It was led by me, Dr. Brenda Carter, a specialist in organizational anthropology. My title was a small, personal victory. I was sitting in my apartment when my phone started blowing up. First a text from my mom, confused. Then, a missed call from my dad. Finally, a string of increasingly furious texts from Brooke. Asterisk Dr. Carter? You? This is a joke. Asterisk the final text read, asterisk this ends now. Asterisk. Brooke stormed into the HR director's office, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. I heard about it later from a gossipy junior analyst. She issued an ultimatum, cancel the training sessions or she would resign. She listed her accomplishments, her client roster, her indispensability. The HR director, a formidable woman named Helen, listened patiently. When Brooke finished, Helen simply leaned forward and said, "Brooke, we were actually going to schedule a meeting with you to discuss these very concerns. If you feel you cannot participate in the company's new direction, we can certainly discuss the terms of your departure." Brooke was reportedly speechless. She had expected a fight, but not her own dismissal. She left the office pale and silent. On the first day of training, my stomach was a knot of nerves. The conference room was packed with Brooke's entire team, including Brooke herself. She sat in the back row, arms crossed, her glare a physical weight. I began by talking about the anthropology of work, how every office is its own tribe with unique rituals, power structures, and communication styles. I saw skeptical looks slowly turn into curious ones. People started nodding. During a breakout activity, I overheard one young woman say, "This actually makes sense. It explains why it feels so impossible to give feedback to certain people." She didn't look at Brooke, but everyone knew. The floodgates opened during the Q&A. An older employee, his voice hesitant, said, What if the person who sets the culture is the one who refuses to listen? What if every suggestion is treated as a personal insult?" A wave of murmured agreement rippled through the room. Brooke stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "This is just pop psychology nonsense designed to coddle underperformers." But before she could say more, Helen from HR, who was observing, spoke calmly from the side of the room. "Thank you for your input, Brooke. Please let Brenda continue." Defeated and furious, Brooke snatched her notebook and stormed out of the session. The rest of the week was a whirlwind. I conducted more sessions, and with Brooke absent, her team spoke more freely. The stories were consistent: public shaming, stolen ideas, constant belittlement. I compiled my initial findings into a neutral, data-driven report for William and Helen. I didn't know what happened behind closed doors, but I saw the consequence. On Friday, Brooke was called into a meeting with William and Helen. It lasted over an hour. When she emerged, she looked like a different person. The usual arrogance was gone, replaced by a pale, shaken stillness. She walked to her office without looking at anyone and closed the door. My work at Apex Dynamics began to have a ripple effect. Employees from other departments asked if they could sit in on my sessions. Team morale surveys for Brooke's department showed a marked, if tentative, improvement. The fear was slowly being replaced by cautious optimism. At the end of the month, William Moore asked to see me. "Brenda, the feedback has been extraordinary," he said. "You've done in weeks what our internal teams couldn't do in years. We'd like to offer you a long-term consultant role." He proposed a retainer, a significant pay increase, and a mandate to help redesign the leadership culture across the entire company. My dead-end degree had just become the cornerstone of my career. Meanwhile, Brooke's empire was crumbling. Without her trademark intimidation tactics, her team's performance initially dipped as they adjusted to a new, more collaborative rhythm. 2 of her top reports formally requested transfers to other departments. The hard data she had always hidden behind, her team's output, began to slide into the red. She tried to blame the disruption I had caused, but the reports I provided to leadership clearly showed the problems were long-standing. The chaos was not caused by the diagnosis, but by the disease itself. A scheduled quarterly review was suddenly upgraded to a formal performance and conduct review. I was not invited to Brooke's performance review, but my reports were central to the discussion. Helen later told me that they had presented Brooke with a compiled document of anonymous employee testimonials. For the first time, she was forced to sit and listen, without interruption, to the cumulative impact of her behavior. She heard how her words had demoralized talented people, how her actions had driven them away. She had no defense against the sheer volume of consistent evidence. William Moore was firm but fair. He did not fire her. Instead, he placed her on a strict, 3-month leadership probation and mandated she undergo executive coaching. A few nights later, my doorbell rang. Brooke stood on my doorstep, her eyes red-rimmed. The invincible facade was completely gone. "They're going to fire me, Brenda," she whispered, stepping inside. "You have to help me. You have to tell them it's not that bad. Tell them I'm improving." She was begging, something I had never seen her do. She wasn't sorry for what she'd done, she was sorry she'd been caught. "This is your fault," she sobbed, collapsing onto my sofa. "You ruined everything I built." I looked at my sister, truly looked at her. "I didn't ruin anything, Brooke," I said quietly. "I just did my job. You built it yourself." She looked up, a flicker of her old anger returning. "So you won't help me? You won't put in a good word?" I shook my head, my heart aching but my resolve firm. "I will not lie for you, Brooke. I can't. My professional integrity, the trust your company has placed in me, it's all I have. It's the one thing you can't mock or take away." The truth of that statement hung in the air between us. She stared at me, and for a single moment, I saw something beyond anger, understanding. Then she stood, her mask of bitterness slamming back into place. "You're vindictive," she spat, and stormed out of my apartment. The next morning, I received a call from Helen in HR. She informed me that the leadership team had decided to demote Brooke, removing her management responsibilities but offering her a senior individual contributor role. The probation and coaching mandate stood. Then, Helen paused. "The executive coach we use is excellent, but given the unique circumstances and your deep understanding of the situation, William and I were wondering if you would be comfortable leading Brooke's coaching sessions?" The question stunned me. It was the ultimate test of my professionalism. Could I separate the sister from the client? I thought about the broken woman on my sofa. I took a deep breath. "Yes," I said. "Professionally, yes, I can do that." The first coaching session was held in a neutral conference room at Apex. Brooke arrived, her posture rigid with humiliation. I began not by listing her faults, but by asking her about her goals, her fears, what she thought had gone wrong. At first, she gave clipped, defensive answers. But as I used techniques I'd studied for years, active listening, reflective questioning, she slowly began to open up. She talked about the pressure she felt, her belief that being soft was a weakness. I guided her to see that true strength was in building up her team, not breaking them down. It wasn't a miracle, but it was a start. I witnessed the first, fragile crack in her armor. A month later, William Moore called Brooke and me into his office. He stood and shook both our hands. "I wanted to thank you both," he said. He looked at me. "Brenda, your impact has been transformative. We are formally extending your contract for another year, with a 40% increase in your retainer. We want you to lead this cultural shift across the entire organization." Then he turned to Brooke. "And your latest project metrics are the best they've been in 2 years. Keep it up." We walked out of his office together. In the hallway, employees stopped me to thank them for the training. No one stopped Brooke. The poetic justice was absolute. Brooke had once mocked my dead-end degree. Now, her company's future depended on it. And I had won without ever breaking a rule or lowering myself. I simply proved my worth.